to use the small Anticlastic former, after you have it mounted and you have the urethane holder in place, you want to choose your metal. I am using, it's probably about 20 gauge, maybe 22 gauge, annealed copper. You don't have to use annealed metal, but you will get a tighter curve and it'll be easier to form. So just go ahead and anneal your metal unless you have a special reason not to. You want to make sure that your metal is aligned and parallel to the former. So you don't want it to be sticking out this way or angled back. You want it to be in line with the groove in the former. You want to first place your metal so that the very end, the very tip of the metal is sort of in the middle of the former. You want to form that end first. Once your metal is in place, we're going to press the handle down and you can watch the metal begin to form. So this is the very first step of forming. You can see that anticlastic curve is beginning to take shape. So then you want to continue to form the strip by scooting the metal forward, taking little tiny steps forward. So about 1/8 of an inch or less. So this is where we were first. We're going to scoot the metal forward, make sure it's still straight out and parallel to the former, and we'll press again. You can see even more of the metal has begun to form. So we'll scoot it forward another little bit. We will press again. And we will continue to do that as we slightly move the metal forward. The smaller steps you take, the smoother the curve will be. So I'll do a little bit here, taking itty bitty steps so you can see how smooth the transitions between the bends are. Okay, let's take a look. So that is a nice, even, smooth curve. On this side of the metal, I'm going to take larger steps so that you can see what happens if you take too big of steps forward. So we're going to form the end, just like before. We've got a nice anticlastic curve forming. And instead of scooting forward just a tiny bit, I'm going to scoot forward, 3/4 of an inch or an inch. I'm going to do the same thing, scoot it too far forward. And actually that does not look as bad as I expected. But you can see here the edge of the strip. This is the second bend and this is the third. So you can see how it differs from the first where we took the tiny steps. So at least 1/8 of an inch steps or smaller, that will give you a smoother result. So what you'll do is you'll just keep scooting it forward. You can check from the side to make sure that you're feeding your metal in straight. And you will just continue to advance your metal and form it. And then to remove it, you will just slide it right off. This is 16 gauge full hard copper. So I'm going to show you how this behaves in the small anticlastic former. So I'm keeping the texture side up, making sure my metal is going in parallel to the former. And then I'm going to press down with the handle. You can see it barely does anything. So this is unannealed, full hard copper that has it's been straight out of the rolling mill. So you can see it has curved it this direction, but there is not much of that anticlastic curve showing up. So let me anneal this and I will show you the difference between using the full hard versus the annealed metal. All right, this is the same piece of metal before, the 16 gauge copper. This is the end of the metal that I formed while it was full hard. So I'm going to show you on the opposite end how it behaves when the metal is annealed. Again, I am just lining up the end of the strip toward the middle of the former so that it's formed on the first press. You can already see that it's a huge improvement. So we will continue. We're scoot the metal forward 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch, some small step like that. You'll push the handle down, scoot it forward, push the handle down, scoot it forward, push it down again, all the while making sure that your metal is parallel to the former. So we'll do another little step and then I will show you. So this is the end of the 16 gauge copper that I annealed before forming. You can see there's a really defined anticlastic shape to it. This is the end that I formed while the metal was full hard. So you can clearly see the difference between the two ends. Another thing you can do with the small anticlastic former is, let's pretend that this is a cuff bracelet that I've formed using the large anticlastic former. To bring the ends of a cuff in so that it becomes more oval, you can use this smaller former. Even though it's not exactly the same profile as the large former, there is still a way that you can bring this in to be a tighter radius. So rather than forming right at the end of the strip, you want to scoot your metal forward so that there's maybe an inch or so, 3/4 of an inch to an inch toward the end of the strip, extending beyond the former. So you want to make sure that your metal is lined up so the cuff is in line with the former, and then you'll make a slight press. And you can see that end, begin to turn in. It's subtle right now, but you can see like right here is where we started forming it in. So I'm going to move forward and you can see how that end can be brought in just a little bit. Oops, there we go. You can see how this side now comes in at a tighter curve than this side.